Shalom, this is ben-Emmett with another exciting edition of the Torah Watchman Show International LLC. Hope everyone's been well. Did you know that I attended briefly for about 2 years an Orthodox Yeshiva? The focal point on that Yeshiva program was all things Talmud. I was going there thinking that I would get formal education about the Torah side of Judaism. It was all the Talmud. Now, I've gotten into some arguments, not really arguments, but say debates with other Orthodox Jews, especially in respect to the October 7th massacre by Hamas against the Jewish people and the immediate mobilization of thousands of Jews in Israel, including reluctantly some Hasidim who were just, sitting in school essentially in yeshiva as their lifelong career. And then to this day, the draft is a very heated topic among rabbis. That rabbis are encouraging their students in yeshiva not to even register for the draft, even though the Knesset passed a draft law that you have to register. That doesn't mean you go immediately to war and mobilize with the IDF. It just means that it's accountability. It's just accountability. But what the purpose of this video is, what is actually taught in the Orthodox Yeshiva? Now, first of all, this is not my opinion. And I already told you my personal experience in 2 years going to Yeshiva. Shulchan Aruch was the main core curriculum there. I quit because I was disenfranchised because all the different rabbis that were my teachers instructed me, it was all about the Talmud. It was all about the Talmud and not about the Torah, and not Halakha coming out of the Torah and the 613 mitzvot, and those are expositions of that. That's a lot of laws in itself. I wanted to be trained formally academia, instead of me researching and reading books and things like this. Already have 4 degrees in science, but I've been blinded with science for most of my life. I wanted to have formal Jewish education, and I was disappointed, and I found out then that it was just all about the Talmud. And talking to other Orthodox Jews, I've told them, I said, the yeshiva they train you to be a Talmudist, and not really to be a defender or builder of the Torah. And they thought I was scandalous or even saying that. And said, you don't know what you're talking about. Of course they talk about the Torah. You see, most of my Orthodox brothers, they equate oral law and written, as is written, the Torah, as synonymously as the same thing. So they equate the halakha of the rabbis, primarily Rashi, Ramban, and others in the Middle Ages, with Moshe, the chief lawgiver. Now, so I did some research using artificial intelligence, and a lot of people are familiar with what I'm talking about here, but I did some research. It saved me a lot of time. It's a parsing tool, and it goes out to 1,000 different websites and consolidates information into a single synopsis. So I'm going to read something to you about this interesting thing and point out conclusively why rabbis are wrong in Israel when they say that the Torah commands every Jewish male, does the same thing about women, that they are to read and learn and study the Torah all day long for their primary focal point. And it's true that there are a lot of Jews in Israel that go to yeshiva as a lifelong career path. Okay? So in Orthodox yeshivas, as of this year, rabbis primarily teach the Talmud, based on my analysis here, and this is not my opinion, which serves as the core of the curriculum. While the Torah, the 5 books of Moshe, is foundational, it is typically studied in depth during early childhood education, cheder programs, grade school, okay? Whereas the advanced yeshiva study focuses on the intricate legal and philosophical analysis found in the Talmud or oral law, okay? These books were written by rabbis. They were not written about appointed rabbis of God or appointed judges of God, okay? Now, the centrality of the Talmud. In a typical Orthodox Yeshiva, the majority of the day is dedicated to the Gemara, okay? That's the analytic component of the Talmud. Students often spend up to 30 hours a week on Talmudic study, using it as a vehicle to master Jewish law, logic, and dialectics. Study of the Written Torah remains constant through the weekly Parsha, like in during Shabbat, and its classical commentators. However, in higher yeshiva settings, it is often used as given knowledge, implication, base that serves as a springboard for the more complex orator found in the Talmud. Excuse me. Now, Halakha, or Jewish law. A portion of the day is devoted, a portion, of practical Jewish law, often using texts like the Mishnah Berurah or the Shulchan Aruch, which I mentioned before, which are themselves codified applications of Talmudic principles. Now, among some of the denominational nuances in Haredi Judaism or Orthodox Yeshivas, these emphasize also the Talmud almost exclusively during the main study sessions, the Sadarim, with additional time for the Musar or ethics. Hasidic Yeshivas, alongside intensive Talmudic study, and these are active group debates about debates that occurred by rabbis in the Middle Ages that they read in the Talmud in their assignments. So intensive Talmudic study, these institutions devote significant daily time, about 3 hours, to Hasidic philosophy. So denominational speaking, if you're a Hasidic yeshiva, then you spend time to talk about the history and what is Hasidim versus Chabadnik, or versus traditional, say, modern Orthodoxy, and so on. Now, modern Orthodox, religious Zionist yeshivas, okay, ultra-Orthodox are not focused on Zionism as far as Israel, so that's a dichotomy of change with modern Orthodox, which has a Zionist focal point. While the Talmud remains a primary subject, these institutions often include more formal study of the Tanakh, the prophets and writings, and the Mashava, which is Jewish philosophy, than Haredi schools. So is this a surprise to you? Again, in conclusion, if you're interested going to yeshiva, go to yeshiva, especially if that's your higher form of education. If your parents invest you going to a cheder or a Jewish grade school, then go to yeshiva. This is considered your undergraduate program per se, okay? I remember something that the Rebbe, the Chabadnik Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson said, just go 1 year, go 1 or 2 years if you can to yeshiva before you go to a regular secular college. So he was encouraging them to get a transfusion of higher learning in a yeshiva about Judaism. I don't see a problem in that. I'm not against people going to yeshiva, but just don't go there thinking you're going to learn all about the Torah. No, what you can do is learn all about Rashi's isms, Rabban's isms, his Mishnah Torah, and they both have their own Mishnah Torah. And essentially, these are commentaries, folks. These are documentaries, philosophical debates, arguments. The Talmud is yin and yang about everything in the 5 books of Torah that is open to debate, even though it's strictly prohibited in Devarim and Deuteronomy. You are never to add or subtract anything from the Torah. Yet, the rabbis have justified this, saying we need moral fences around our lives to prevent us from being seduced into sin. Why? Because we live in the diaspora for generations under Gentile governance. Folks, we don't know Jew on this planet. If you're living in Switzerland, if you're living in Australia, if you're living in Russia and Spain and England, South America, wherever in America, you can move to Israel. You can move to Israel now if you wanted to. It may be economically a struggle, but you can have a planned path to move to Israel. You don't have to live under this legalism anymore. And that's the whole justification, folks, at the end of the day for the Talmud, is that it is halakha created by rabbis on how to keep yourself righteous, a righteous mensch, a tzaddik, while living in a foreign country. It may be in the historically in Spain was a Roman Catholic, or in other countries, Azerbaijan was controlled by Muslims and so on, in Turkey. But I'm just saying is, we don't have to live underneath these rabbi laws anymore. It may have been helpful at that time when we could not, absolutely not, go back to so-called Palestine, as it was called, before Israel declared independence in 1948. And this is what the focal point of these rabbis were. And these rabbis today, and they're teaching in Yeshiva, that the implication is the Mashiach may never come. So we may never have marching orders to go to Israel. So you might as well keep on reading the Talmud, folks. And I hear people on Facebook bragging they read the Sanhedrin Tractate, this chapter and this chapter. Folks, I've read it too. I've read it too. And it's good to know what the other side said. Shulchan Aruch is an excellent set of volumes talking about all the different exceptions and waivers and laws and things around all things for Shabbat laws and Halakha, that kind of thing. But folks, listen, God is the lawgiver. He created the Ten Commandments. He gave the 613 mitzvot, which were blessings and admonishment, to Moshe, the only individual, the only prophet, chief lawgiver that God spoke to face to face. And that's why Moshe and Moshe alone wrote the 5 books of the Torah. And it was not hard for us to live by it, because Moses said it's not out of your reach, it's not too far away, it's not too high, not too low. It's just where you need it, to live it and breathe it in your life and pass it on to your children. Take all things in stride, folks, but be educated. Be educated. And don't be fooled by the rabbis, okay? I do not go to synagogue because of tradition. I go to synagogue because I have respect for the Torah. I want my family to hear the Torah read every week. And I like some of the embellishments of tradition around that. I like walking to that synagogue. There's no temple in Israel, and that is a problem. If you go to Israel, you'll be going to a synagogue and not the temple on Mount Moriah. It is what it is. So, what is taught in a yeshiva? The Talmud is taught in yeshiva. The Torah is talked about on the 7th day on Shabbat. And that's about the way it goes. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next time, Hakam Ben-Emmett signing out. Shalom Aleichem.
If you've enjoyed this program, please click like and subscribe.